Om Machana Timandasya Chinanchana Shlakya Shakshu Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharini Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Bhaskachai Desatarani Srila Prabhupada Ki. This evening we will continue our study of Sri Upadesamrita, Nectar of Instruction. And we have been discussing a few verses already of Sri Upadesamrita. The first verse, Vacha Vegam Askoda Vegam Jiva Vegam Utarbasta Vegam Etam Vegam Yoviseta Dira Sarvamapyam Pritivinna Sisyam. A sober person who tolerates the urge to speak, the mind's demands, the actions of anger, and the urges of the tongue, belly, and genitals is qualified to make disciples all over the world. So a Krishna conscious person controls all his senses, mind senses, that by engaging them in devotional service. But to come to that platform, Srila Goswami gives 6 things not to do and six things to do. First, in the second verse, he gives 6 items we have to avoid in order to become Krishna conscious. Atyara payasha strapachalpani amarha janasanga saloliam sasatpya bhaktir vinashyati. Once Rupa Goswami says that one's devotional service is spoiled when one becomes entangled in the following 6 activities: eating more than necessary, or collecting more funds than required, endeavoring for mundane things that are very difficult to obtain. And so we should avoid this over endeavor. And talking unnecessary about mundane subject matters, practicing rules and regulations just for following them or neglecting them, associating with more worldly minded persons, and being greedy for mundane achievements. So now, since many weeks, we are discussing text 3, 6 things to do. Utsan nisayadaya tat karma pravartanat. Sanghatyaga sato vite satbir bhaktir pashidati. There are 6 principles favorable to the execution of pure devotional service. Being utsa, being enthusiastic, endeavoring with confidence, that nisaya, and daryat, being patient, acting according to the regulative principles, and that is what we are discussing since a few weeks. What are these regulative principles? Yeah, positive and negative. Negative is the 4 regulative principles, but positive are much more important. That Shravana Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam, Pardasevanam, Artyam Vandam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmani, Vednam. These are the regulative principles. And these regulative principles, they are explained by Prahlad Maharaj to his father Hiranyakasipu, and we have been discussing till now Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Pardasevanam, and now we are discussing Archanam, and last week we spoke about the Pancharatrika Vidhi, the rules and regulations for deity worship. So we understood more or less the principles behind deity worship. But today in the purport, Srila Prabhupada, he mentions who especially should do deity worship. Can someone read, please, the a paragraph which is on the screen, starting with Grihastha devotees must adopt.
Hare Krishna.
Please, thank.
Yep, no problem. Let me open up the window again. Garisha devotees must adopt the Archana Vidhi or deity worship according to the suitable arrangements and directions given by the spiritual master. Regarding those unable to take to the deity worship in the temple, there is the following statement in the Agni Purana. Any householder devotee circumstantially unable to worship the deity must at least see the deity worship, and in this way he may achieve success also. The special purpose of deity worship is to keep oneself always pure and clean. Grihastha devotees shall be actual examples of cleanliness. Deity worship should be continued along with hearing and chanting. Therefore,
Thank you. So we will discuss this. Grihastha devotees must adopt the Archana Vidhi. So that is an activity typical for Grihasthas. Grihasthas should install the deity, Prabhupada mentioned, and see the deity as the master of the house. And they wake up the deity, they bath the deity, they offer foodstuff to the deity, they pray to the deity. So this, by doing that, one's house becomes a temple. Now, sometimes there are misunderstandings amongst devotees because we have discussed Pancharataka Vidhi. It means the Grihastha should apply the Pancharataka Vidhi, the old rules and regulations for deity worship. Prabhupada said, the deity worship of home or in the temple is the same standard. There are no different standards according to the Vedas. There is only one standard, that's Pancharataka Vidhi. So an Grihastha devotee should adopt them, but that does not mean that one can perform deity worship without being qualified. One must receive second initiation, and then, with the permission of the spiritual master, one can worship the deities. And otherwise, one worships Krishna in the form of a picture. This is our standards given by Prabhupada. Unfortunately, many devotees are not following them. But it's good to be aware there's only one standard. And it said worship according to suitable arrangement and direction given by the spiritual master. So after receiving permission of the spiritual master, one can worship the deities. Mostly Grihasthas worship Gaunitai, because we have the tendency to make many offenses. And when we make unintentional offenses to Gaunitai, Gaunitai will forgive. But Radha Krishna deities, that's something else. That normally to worship Radha Krishna deities in a temple, one needs 25 Brahmins at least to maintain the standard. Because this is important, that we worship Krishna first class. And for this, usually in temples, it is a community effort. Everyone works together to worship the Radha Krishna deities. So this is some important instructions by Prabhupada. The deity is non-different from Krishna. And we should always be aware of it, that it's a very serious business. We should be careful how to deal with Krishna. We are dealing with Krishna. The deity is non-different. That it said here regarding those unable to take to deity worship in the temple, there is this following statement in the Agni Purana. The Prabhupada always said, yeah, because in the beginning, in the 70s, everyone was living in the temple. That, but then gradually everyone started to marry and they were living outside the temple. But the idea is, if you live outside of the temple, that you come to the temple every day for the program. If that's not possible, then one can worship the deity at home. That, yeah. So any householder devotee circumstantially unable to worship the deity must at least see the deity worship, and in this way he may achieve success also. So there is no difference between the benefit of the pujari or the benefit of the devotee who comes to Mangal Arti and worships the deity. It's the same benefit. That the special purpose of deity worship is to keep oneself pure and clean. Yet to go on the altar, one must take a shower before. That one must be clean. And purify one's hands. There are so many. We discussed last time. One prepares the abhigamana, means preparing oneself, one's body, taking a bath, clean cloth every day, and so on, to worship the deities. So the deity worship means keeping oneself always pure and clean. So that if one worships deity, it forces one to live in goodness. That goodness means cleanliness. Cleanliness is next to godliness. But the deity should be worshipped. But the qualification for worshipping the deity is that you chant 16 rounds, because that cleanses your mind, your heart. Therefore, Prabhupada writes, deity worship should be continued with hearing and chanting, cannot go separately. Therefore, every mantra is preceded by the word Namaha. So when you get second initiation, you learn all these mantras. Mantras for offering water. Mantras for offering every article on the puja tray. And that for offering fire, for offering the giwik, for offering the incense, for offering scented oils and all mantra for every action in the in deity worship, and they end all with Namaha. Yeah, that it is. Therefore, every mantra is preceded by the word Namaha. Sometimes it's followed by Namaha. So in all the mantras there are specific potencies of which the Grihastha must take advantage. So what's the advantage of worshipping Krishna? Is you are offering everything to Krishna, nothing for ourselves. And that brings one closer to this Anya Bilasta Sunyam. That means worshipping Krishna out of love, not asking anything for ourselves. So there are mantras preceded by the word Namaha, but if one chants the holy name of the Lord, he receives the results of Namaha many times. So one must do both chanting the holy name, because by chanting the holy name, that one can reach the platform of love of Godhead. So that's the potency of the holy name. It purifies our heart. So then one may ask the question, then what is the necessity of being initiated? And Prabhupada answers here. The answer is that even though the chanting of the holy name is sufficient to enable one to progress in spiritual life to the standard of love of Godhead, one is nonetheless susceptible to contamination because of possessing a material body. So for this, we need all these rules and regulations and follow the instructions of the spiritual master. Because we identify with the body when we worship Krishna, and that's a problem. To remove this material contamination and come to the point of identifying ourselves as spirit souls, we need to purify our heart by following the instructions of the spiritual master. So the chanting of the holy name purifies one's heart. But to purify one's heart, one must identify oneself as a spirit soul. That if one identifies as the body, one acts out of lust. And that's a problem. That for chanting the holy name, we must be situated in correct sambandha jnana. Correct sambandha jnana, that's a correct attitude for chanting. It's a chanting in which we are aware of our relationship with Krishna. We must live in our relationship with Krishna, not in our relationship with the body and all the relations we imagine in this world, which are all temporary. So that's very important. But we are identifying with the body. That makes it very, very difficult. So to come out of this misidentification, we must follow. We must follow the instructions of the spiritual master. And then Krishna will form within the heart. Krishna will form within the heart. He will help us to come out of this wrong mentality. But that happens by following the instructions of the spiritual master. That if we follow the instruction of the spiritual master, Krishna is pleased. And because he is pleased, he accepts it as a little love. Although we don't know what love is, spiritual love, we don't know. But by following the spiritual master, Krishna accepts it as such. And therefore Krishna says, Tesham satatayuktam pachtam pidipavkam dadami buddhyogandam yenamam upayantite. If one worships me with a little love, I give you the realization to the heart. You start to realize that we are different from the body. And that's by the mercy of the spiritual master. And then we come in an internal mood, in a mood in which we can understand that we are not the body, that we are a spirit soul. Because how do we know when we become humble, when we become tolerant? Understand we are not the body, we have just to tolerate. that we don't want honor because that's for the body, not for us. And we give all honor to others. We don't want wealth because that's for the body. We just need what we need. We just accept what we need, not over and over. And that we avoid relations based on lust with the opposite sex. And yes, we serve Krishna, not for any purpose, not for getting liberation, not for going back to the spiritual world, just to please Krishna. And if we do that, we will go to the spiritual world as a side effect. So one should regularly take advantage of both the Bhagavat and the Pancharatika process. So Prabhupada stresses this chanting, hearing, remembering should go together with deity worship, Pancharatika Vidhi. They are intertwined. The worship of the deity, it's mentioned in the Bhagavatam, it's mentioned at the end of the 12th chapter, that there you find described all the processes for each age. That's at the end of the Bhagavatam, 12.3.52, it says, Kritya dayato Vishnam tetrayam chayatomaka tvapra parishayayam kalo Darikirtanat. Whatever result was obtained in Satya Yuga by meditating on Vishnu, in Treta Yuga by performing sacrifices, and in Dvapara Yuga by serving the lotus feet of the Lord, can be attained in Kali Yuga by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. So it said in Dvapara Yuga, in the previous age, the process was serving the lotus feet of the Lord with deity worship, Archana Vidhi, or the Pancharatika. That was the pose in previous age. But in previous age, people were more pure. That now vice in Kali Yuga is all pervading, and nobody is qualified for deity worship, but the chanting makes us qualified. And that's the point that Prabhupada drives home here. Yes, that now can someone read the next 3 sentences? Deity worship has 2 divisions.
Deity worship has 2 divisions, namely pure and mixed with fruitive activities. For one who is steady, deity worship is compulsory. Observing the various types of festivals, such as Sri Janmastami, Sri Ramnavi, and Nrsimha Chaturdasi, is also included in the process of deity worship. In other words, it is compulsory for householder devotees to observe these festivals.
Now it said deity worship has 2 divisions, pure and mixed with fruitive activities. So the first class deity worship should be pure, with pure intention. Pure intention means acting out of love of Krishna, nothing asking for ourselves. But many times in the beginning we are not pure, and we We have material desires. Material desires means prayers to Krishna, factually. Those are material desires, that prayers to the super soul to fulfill our bodily desires. That, of course, that is second class. But the Bhagavatam says in the second canto, Akama sarvakama moksakama udarati trivena bhaktiyorita chaita purushampram. When one is full of material desires, or one has no material desires, or one desires liberation, Tivrena Bhakti Yoga, with great force we should worship the Supreme Lord. And then one becomes, if one worships with mixed intentions, material desires, one will be gradually purified from these desires. What is the purifying factor? It's Krishna. When we chant the holy name, we become purified because holy name is Krishna. When we worship the deity, we become purified because the deity is Krishna. But to worship the deity, one must be steady. Follow 16 rounds every day, the regulative principles. Have a morning program, evening program, read Prabhupada's books, study in one's service to Krishna. It's also important to worship at least these main festivals. And Prabhupada mentioned 3. Janmastami, Ram Navami, Nrsimha Chaturdasi, also for Karpurnim. These are the 4 main festivals. Ram Navami will be soon. I think it's the 6th of April. And Nrsimha Chaturdasi is mid-May. And so we need to worship these festivals. That is part of a duty of a devotee. Now, after mentioning this, Prabhupada starts to mention all these offenses against the holy name. And these offenses, they are discussed in the Nectar of Devotion, Prabhupada, because we should not forget this. Upadeshamrita, Nectar of Instruction, is a summary of this Nectar of Devotion in 11 verses. And so this is a French version, Le Nectar de la Dévotion, la science complète du Bhakti Yoga. The Nectar of Devotion, the complete science of Bhakti Yoga. And there you have chapter 6, the art of performing devotional service is described. The art of performing devotional service means how to perform devotional service. And there first, we have this description of 10 things to do and 10 things not to do. And then there are 44 other items. And these 44 other items, they are described here by Prabhupada. They are on the screen. And Prabhupada mentioned them all. It's just all the information we find in the Nectar of Devotion. And that's part of our regulative principles. We need to follow all these rules and regulations. But yes, but before doing deity worship, we have to follow the first 20 items. And the first 10 items are things to do. And the first item that makes us which is the first step in becoming qualified to do deity worship, is accepting taking shelter of the lotus feet of the spiritual master. The spiritual master will instruct us how to perform all these activities in devotional service. And one must receive initiation from such a spiritual master, Swami says. And of course, follow his instructions. That's most important. That's our instruction. That's our connection with the spiritual master, following his instruction and following the footsteps of the previous acharyas. And asking questions of the spiritual master. How can I make progress in Krishna consciousness? Because when one takes shelter of the instruction of the spiritual master, one must be ready to give up all material attachment just for satisfying Krishna. It is good also for devotees sometimes to go on pilgrimage. Prabhupada says to Dwarka or Vrindavan, and one should only be busy with things of the external world which are very essential. One should fast on Ekadashi, and one should worship the banyan tree, or the holy tree. We are worshipping Tulsi Devi, holy tree. So these are 10 activities which one should do. And before coming to these 44 items of devotions of deity worship, which is on the screen, there are 10 things to avoid, Rupa Goswami said. And they are mentioned also in these verses of Nectar of Instruction, because it's a summary. And that's first, one should give up the association of non-devotees. So that's mentioned twice by Rupa Goswami. Shana Sangha Saldoniam Sa. One should give up the association of greedy people. Sangotyaga Satovete. One should give up the association of non-devotees and associate with devotees. And then it said one should not instruct people who are not desiring to accept the process of devotional service. So don't instruct those in Krishna consciousness who don't want to be instructed by you. That's an offense, because then they will blaspheme Krishna and make offenses and be further away from devotional service. And that one should not be too anxious to opening new temples and so on. That one does not need to read many books. That Prabhupada with Shutakirti, Prabhu's servant, he rang this bell, and Shutakirti came, and Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said, sit down, and he was reading Krishna book, and he said, you don't have to read many books. Just by reading this one book, you become Krishna conscious. So Prabhupada books are sufficient. We don't have to read all the books of the Goswamis and so on. It's not necessary. You can read, but certainly no need to read books outside of the Bhakti tradition, unless for your work or for your study, for your occupation. So yes, and yes, one must not be negligent of all one's daily activities. You must do what's needed. Prabhupada said, this is Rupa Goswami, so one should not be too much afflicted by if one loses something or one is happy because one gains something. That is all the illusory energy. One must also offer respect to the deities. We don't worship them, but we give them respect. One should not cause any trouble for other living entities. And one must give up the offenses, the 10 offenses against the holy name. And one should not tolerate blasphemy for devotees. So these are all principles we have to follow. And when you follow these principles, then you can perform sadhana bhakti, following these rules and regulations. And deity worship is full of rules and regulations. The chanting of the holy name, there are no rules and regulations, but you need to adopt the right inner attitude. So Rupa Goswami gives these 20 principles before coming to these 44. But these 20 principles are also very important. They are of major importance, Rupa Goswami said. And most important is getting initiation from a spiritual master and follow his instructions. So then he gives, Rupa Goswami gives up 44 other principles, and they are on the screen here. And the first we see on the screen is to enter the temple with shoes or being carried on a palanquin. The last point we don't have problems with, but to enter the shoes with temple, the temple with shoes, that should be avoided. That when I first came in contact with the devotees, I went to a home program. I never met devotees, and when I was at a house of Hyastas, I was ringing the bell and I asked, is the program here? And the devotee says, yes, you go into he was pointing to the living of the temple room. And I went into the temple room, and the Swami who was sitting there told me, maybe you should leave your shoes outside. So that is a principle that not only leave our shoes outside, but also be clean. That's the first. B, not to observe the prescribed festivals. Yeah, it is mentioned in the Govardhan Lila. Krishna says one who does not observe this Govardhan festival will be bitten by the serpents around Govardhan. So you will be bitten by a serpent. So we must avoid this festival, must observe these festivals. that this is important. If one fasts on the appearance day of the Lord and observes the festival, become absorbed in the pastimes, that then it becomes very joyful. That C, to avoid offering obeisances in front of the deity. So we are not offering obeisances to the devotees when the curtain is open of the deity. Of course, there is an exception. If the spiritual master comes in, we offer obeisances, but otherwise we have to avoid this. That usually in the morning program, after Mangala Arti and Nrsimha prayer, we have the Tulsi Puja, and then we offer obeisances to the devotees. Vangakalptrabhyasha, Kripasinabhyasha Patnam, Pavanabhyo Vaishnabhyo Namo Namah. While the curtain is closed. So that is a principle to be followed. To offer prayers in an unclean state, not having washed one's hands after eating. So this is very important. We should wash our hands before eating, after eating. That then always have clean clothes. Normally a Brahmin, like before taking lunch, he takes a shower always. That clean. And now that when one is in goodness, one will much more appreciate the food and so on. That in one's consciousness is different, always clean. E, to offer obeisance with one hand. So if you come in the temple, we should offer our obeisance with two hands on the floor, not with one hand. We see that many times. In one hand is a bead bag and the other hand touches the floor. No, get your hand out of the bead bag and offer obeisance with two hands. To circumambulate directly in front of the deity. We cannot circumambulate anyone in front of the deity. But we circumambulate the deity. Sometimes devotees go around 3 times around the temple to circumambulate the deity. That's good. To spread one's legs before the deity. Yes, one should sit in asana position or on a chair, but not stretch one's legs before the deity. Prabhupada many times corrected this. To sit before the deity while holding one's ankles with one's hands. No, that should be avoided. To lie down before the deity is another offense. To eat before the deity. And that's also important at home. If you eat, you cover the deity. Don't eat in front of the deity. That's an offense. Our eating is considered unclean. So we are closing the curtain after. So we offer the food and we do the arti and we close the deity. The deity room. And then we cover the deity. Then to speak lies before the deity. That we should always speak the truth before the deity. That's important. Be truthful. To address someone loudly before the deity. No, the attention should go for the deity. The deity room should always a submissive mood of reverence and always aware the deity is here. He's in charge. He's my Supreme Lord. Yeah. To talk nonsense before the deity or to cry before the deity. We cannot do that. We should always see the deity in a happy mood, smiling, happy mood. That to argue before the deity, that like the Bhagavatam class is not to challenge and to argue. That's an offensive attitude. To chastise someone before the deity, that also should not be done. That to show someone favor before the deity. No, that to use harsh words before the deity. So these are all offenses. Yeah, to wear a woolen blanket before the deity. Yeah, that to blaspheme someone before the deity. To worship someone else before the deity. To use vulgar language before the deity, to pass air before the deity, to avoid very opulent worship of the deity, to avoid, although one is able to perform it, so one should worship the deity according to one's means, one's position, that and not be a miser, no spend money for the deity. To eat something not offered to the deity. So a devotee should always eat prasadam. Never eat something which is not offered, because it will influence your consciousness, degrade your consciousness. To avoid offering fresh fruits to the deity according to the season. So that's not, it's a tradition that when there's a certain season and the first fruits that come out, we offer to the deity. So according to the season, and then to offer food to the deity which has already been used, a portion of which has been given to others. No, everything what we offer to the deity, the first enjoyer is Krishna. And that should be very strict. In other words, food should not be distributed to anyone until it has been offered to the deity. Because once in his youth, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj, he ate some mango which was not offered to the deity, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur rebuked him mildly. He said, no, it should be offered first to the deity. And then, if for the rest of his life he felt an offender, and he never ate mangoes again in his life. He was always thinking, I'm an offender. So yes, to avoid. So to offer food to the deity which is already being used, given to others, that should be avoided. To sit with one's back to the deity. Yes. When I visited Mayapur in 96, there was a centennial year that it was very hot in Mayapur at that time. It was August. It was like a heat stroke. It was it was not according to the season, much more hotter than usual. And with Bhakti Charamaj, we were visiting different places, and we came at a place of Charanadas Babaji, where there is a temple, a tree under which Charanadas Babaji was chanting, a tree with big leaves. And there's a small temple, and all the devotees were sitting around Gurumach in the temple. But I couldn't fit in, there were too many. And I was standing aside. And Bhakti Maharaj saw me and asked me, you come here to sit before him. And the devotees made space, and I was sitting down before him, and he shouted at me, "Don't sit with your back to the deity." So I remember this for the rest of my devotional life. I'm always very careful where is the deity, so that I'm not sitting with my back to the deity. So to offer obeisance to someone else in front of the deity, or not chant proper prayers when offering obeisance to the spiritual master. When we offer obeisance to the spiritual master, to Prabhupada, we chant this mantra. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravanya Pacharani Nirviseshinyavadi Paskachai Desatarani. We chant this mantra loudly, not silently. So not to chant proper. Chanting proper means loudly, not in meditation or something. And we should not praise someone before the deity. And then to blaspheme the demigods, in the worship of the deity, these 32 offenses should be avoided. So these are 32 offenses. There are 12 more offenses, because there are 44. And they are mentioned in the Varaha Purana. All these offenses, they are explained in detail in Nectar of Devotion. And for every offense, you have practically a paragraph that with explaining the meaning. That of course it goes a little deeper. Because it explains also how to offer appropriate prayers for the deity. So appropriate prayers means, when we pray to Lord Chaitanya, we offer prayers that confirms the mood of Lord Chaitanya. Namama Vranya Krishna Priyamvadaite Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namagarat Vijay Namaha. That's a prayer to Lord Chaitanya as the most magnanimous incarnation, and we take shelter of him. So according to the deity, we offer appropriate prayers. So you have different prayers. Like you have the three main deities of Vrindavan. You have Madan Mohan, Radha Govinda, and Gopinath, Radha Gopinath. So Madan Mohan, Shishya Radha Madan Mohan. Madan Mohan is the one who attracts us. And then we have Radha Govinda is engaging us in the devotional service. And Gopinath, Radha Gopinath means engaging in love, loving relationship with Krishna. So we offer prayers to the situation, to the mood of the deity. And that is to be learned in deity worship. After bathing the deities and dressing the deities, feeding the deities, we offer prayers, appropriate prayers. But here you have, in the Vara Purana, there are additional offenses mentioned. So to eat in the house of a rich man, That so we have to be careful not to accept this opulent sense gratification just for the gratification of our senses. That this because when Kalkishore Das Babaji, he was chanting, and just he didn't have a house or a hut or what, under a tree, he was just chanting that, and some rich man came to tell Maharaj, why are you chanting here? Come, I offer you a nice house that you come to chant with us. That, but Kalkishore Das Babaji would refuse. That yes, then when I do that, he said, I become your servant. I become controlled by you. That so it's not good to accept opulent prasadam in the house of a rich man. That's considered an offense. Interesting. To enter the deity room in the dark. So no, one should first put on lights before entering the deity room. That one cannot touch the deity in the dark. That and to worship the deity without following the regulative principles. Yes, one must give up sinful life, otherwise one cannot worship the deity. To enter the temple without vibrating any sound. So when you come in the temple, always ring the bell. That if there's no bell, knock on the door. That so then to collect food that has been seen by dog. So that is a principle. Also, when we prepare offerings, it should not be seen by outsiders. When it's brought to the deity, it should be covered by cloth so that others don't see it, because not seen by a dog, but many people who are not devotees, they have a doggish mentality. That their dog means only interested in eating and enjoying the senses. And then to break silence while offering worship to the deities. Now one can chant Hare Krishna, the holy names, and glorify the deity. That so to go to the toilet during the time of worshipping the deity, no, one should remain clean. That and wait until the worship is finished. And then to offer incense without offering flowers. Offering incense without offering flowers. Flower and incense go always together. That if there are no flowers available, that can be an excuse, but yes, we should offer flowers and incense together. To worship the deity, we forbidden flowers. Sometimes you have flowers which are like the onion based, like the tulips and so on. Usually we don't use them for worship of the deity. They are considered flowers in ignorance. To begin worship without having washed one's teeth. Yeah, one should be very clean. To begin worship after sex. To touch a lamp, dead body of of woman during a menstrual period, or to put to put on red or bluish clothing, unwashed clothing, the clothing of others, or soiled clothing. So in the temple we should not use have any blue clothing, red clothing. That so yes, it said other offenses are to worship the deity after seeing a dead body, to pass air before the deity, to show anger before the deity, and to worship deity just after returning from a crematorium. After eating, one should not worship the deity until one has digested his food. Nor should one touch the deity or engage in any deity worship after eating safflower oil or hing. These are also offenses. So there are more offenses. We will continue next time to worship this, to go to these offenses. Are there any questions, please?
Hi, Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I have a question about the red clothes and the blue clothes. Are we not supposed to wear red clothes or blue clothes into the temple?
Yeah, and let's see that it's not ideal, especially not we are not wearing blue clothes, because blue represents the mode of ignorance. Red represents the mode of passion. But this is especially important for the pujaris who go on the altar. That it's not ideal. That's the point here. That because it represents the modes of passion and ignorance. We want to be in goodness. So that's the meaning. But especially the blue color should be avoided. That is mentioned a few times. I hope that helps.
Thank you.
Good. There are no questions.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Thank you, Maharaj. So when we are waking up the deities, we should turn the light on before waking them up?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. That should be done. Yeah. At first, put on the light. Good. Thank you very much. Looking forward to see you next week for the Bhagavatam class and the Nectar of Instruction study. Hare Krishna. Jai Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna. Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.